Docker network, and we'll perform two exercises, 1.4 and 1.5. Run container in Docker host network and creating a Docker bridge network. These two will be covering. And there are almost 4 types of network, okay, in Docker. Okay, one is bridge. Till now we were using bridge for communicating by default between the containers. Okay, so single host networking on the same host. Okay, same host means this one we were using till now. So when we do Docker network ls, okay, it will show a bridge network. This we were using for creating the containers. Okay, whenever we used to create, by default this one was attached. Okay, and all the containers were using the same network and they were able to connect and communicate with each other. We haven't checked the connectivity between the containers, but in case we need to check, we can check it. And the other one is overlay. So suppose there are two Docker hosts, DevOps VM1, this is one. And if we create one more DevOps VM2, and for communicating between those two hosts in containers, we can use overlay. Okay. And the third one is host, utilizing the host network stack. Okay. So when we'll do the exercise for this, then it will be more clear, but it will use the Docker means host network. What does that mean? If config, if I do if config, so IPA I'll do instead of if config. So if you see, when the Docker is installed, this Docker 0 virtual interface or a network card is attached. Okay, so and one IP address is attached to it. And when the installation of the Linux is done, at that time loopback address, this 127.0.0.1, that is a local host. For this loopback address, this one is created, and for communicating with the outside world, this one is created. Okay, and Docker also creates one. Okay, so host network means using this IP range only, the IP range of the host. This is the IP range of the host. Okay, and this is the interface for Docker. So host network means using this interface, and none means sometimes if you want a standalone only container without any networking, at that time we'll be using none. Okay, so we are we'll be seeing a practical on host and bridge network now. So let's continue with lab 1.4. Okay, so let's check what are the default networks which we have. Docker network ls. So bridge is there, host is there, and null. Now we'll create our own network, but before that, let's install a netstat tools. Okay, we need to make sure that the port 80 is not in use. Okay, because the first exercise is about host network, which uses the DevOps VM host network itself. So we'll check if port 80 is in use or not. Otherwise, the exercise will not work properly. It will fail. Okay, so if you see, some connection is established on port 80, but port 80 is not in use. Okay, now let's create a network. Okay, means we are creating a container in a network, host network. So the command is docker run -d. Okay, run in a detached mode. Okay, and here we are specifying that use the host network, that is DevOps VM network, and run an HTTPD container. In short, we have not given any name to the container. We are using HTTPD image. Okay, now just click enter. So the host network is already there. We do not need to create it. Okay, so if we do docker network ls, so this is the host network it has used. Okay, and it launched the container. Till now, whenever we used to launch the container, it was explicitly using bridge network, and it was giving an IP address range, okay, which is different, not of the host network, but of the Docker 0 network, the Docker 0 interface which I showed. So now just do sudo docker ps. Okay, and if I now do curl, so if you see it will not show the ports. It will just directly use the host network. So host network means it should be accessible from the local host itself. So if I do localhost, okay, it works. It is showing it works. But remember, it is not installed on the DevOps VM, any Apache or HTTPD server. It is installed inside the container, and it is using the host network, that is DevOps VM network, to display the contents. So what is the IP of this? So it should work on this as well. Okay, it works. Okay. So this was all about the host network.